Alabama's news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. We like to call it Turbo Thursday around here. Why? Because we're speeding our way to Friday. That's right. So it's Turbo Thursday. Hit some of that.
Could mean that point in time inherently contains some sort of cosmic significance, almost as if it were the temporal juxtapoint of the entire space-time continuum.
I don't know what a temporal juxtapoint is, but I'm pretty sure we're there. So pushing the buttons, that would be Big Rig on the board. Hey, man, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Temporal juxtapoint to you.
Yeah, whatever that means. Something about space.
All right, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. 3:30 today, Butters and Lee. So that'll be coming up before you know it. 3:30, Butters and Lee coming in to give us their opinions on some topics of the day. And then at 4 o'clock, I've got a call with a guy who I sort of interacted with through the fact that we're both on the national board for a group called STARS, which is retired military officers who are against wokeness in the military, basically. But STARS, a guy named Paul Crespo calling in from Florida about an article he just wrote about Tim Walz, the new vice presidential candidate. Anyway, that's at 4 o'clock. And then I still got a triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, we're going to talk about it in detail, stolen valor. Yeah, what is that? What does it mean? Does it apply to Tim Walz? I got thoughts. I got opinions. I'm sure you do too. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. But stolen valor is number 1 on the Triple Dipper. And that may wind up being one of the dominating dippers of the day, if you know what I'm saying. In fact, I may have just coined a new phrase. They are the occasional dominating dippers. Number 2, cultural landmines. It's amazing to watch, y'all, as corporate America is just stepping on cultural landmines left and right. Like, why are they doing that? You're walking through a minefield on purpose and you know it. You're getting away from your mission. Your products and services are no longer as wanted by the consumers because you're too busy stepping on cultural landmines. We'll talk about that, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, monopoly money. I didn't get to it yesterday, but it's a big deal. And I think you guys need to check on this because the way you search things on the internet may be about to change, because there's apparently been a whole lot of fakeness going on. I'm calling it monopoly money. That's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump into the opening monologue, and it's going to be kind of in theme with that stolen valor discussion. There's a lot of discussion right now about Tim Walz, the newly selected vice presidential candidate for the Democrat ticket. I mean, a month ago, most Americans had no idea who he was. He was known within his state and to some degree without, but we're all learning about him now. There's a myriad of things that I could draw from about former Congressman, now Governor and candidate for Vice President Tim Walz. I could talk policy, liberal viewpoints, soft on crime, demagoguery, all of it. But I'm going to hone in on one thing. Today, let's talk about one aspect of his background. And I don't usually do this, but this one deserves special attention because he wants the opportunity to be next in line to be commander-in-chief. Capable of influencing issues regarding our military and foreign policy and our footing on the world stage. And there's an effort right now to portray him on the left as a war hero, as a veteran who's been there and done that, and he's not. And he should be ashamed for portraying himself as such or for sitting idly by and letting others do it for him. Because when he does that, he not only smears his own years of service, he does it in complete disrespect for the men and women with whom he served. It's like saying, hey, y'all, what we did together wasn't good enough, so I need to embellish it and make it look better. And that suddenly finds every soldier who served with him during those years lumped into having to explain their own service in order to either refute or justify his claims about himself. So to Tim Walz, I say, do not take their names in vain. Look, stolen valor is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. There's actually a legal definition for stolen valor. It is a crime to claim certain military functions or service or awards that were not earned just to get some personal benefit. Tim Walz may or may not have committed the actual crime of social or stolen valor, but that does not make his behavior right. There is still an ethical and moral dilemma that he has apparently been willing to overlook in order to advance himself for political purposes, as someone who was something that he was not, and yet someone who did things he did not do, And by doing so, again, he dishonors everybody who he actually served with. Look, all soldiers, sailors, airmen, they put on a uniform that are immediately due some honor and recognition just for doing so. I'm proud to have served with some true snake eaters, warriors, special operations guys who embodied the warrior ethos. And truthfully, not all the warriors that I've known would fit the stereotypical mold for heroes. I've known some seriously heroic men and women who were cooks and truck drivers and mechanics and clerks, and the whole big green machine could not have worked without any of them. I also honor those who served, whether in peacetime or war. I know great super soldiers who led by example, served with distinction, and they were tactically and technically proficient, but they never set foot in a war zone because their career did not line up like that. But they also did not try to lie and say that they had. Tim Waltz ought to be proud to say he was a retired master sergeant and leave it at that. A master sergeant who gave time and treasure to the service of his country, but instead, he tells the world he's a retired command sergeant major who carried weapons in war, as if that somehow makes him more of a man, or that somehow those that didn't achieve his fake status didn't serve as well as he did, even though he didn't really serve that way. Look, all of you veterans and families of veterans especially, lean in, listen to me right now. As one of your brothers in arms, I will tell you that your time was not wasted. Your sacrifice is not forgotten. Your honor is intact. I don't care what you did, where you served, or who you served with. You are who we needed at the time you served. And we need leaders who will exhibit that same credo. My son showed me an article a while back, an interview, with Afghanistan's recent ambassador to the U.S., a female, Roya Romani. Now, this is pre-Taliban. This is pre the debacle of the 2021 pullout. But Roya Romani was Afghanistan's recent ambassador to the U.S., and she wanted all U.S. service members to know that, in her words, quote, "You made a huge difference in the lives of people that you haven't met and will never meet." And she went on to say, "It was the progress, the education, the job they experienced that has a life-changing impact." Romani spent time meeting with U.S. Gold Star families to thank them for their sacrifices for her people. Prior to 2001, a woman like Romani could not have even spoken in public in Afghanistan, much less served as an ambassador. But I will tell you that there are things that were done, service that was rendered, duties fulfilled in stateside conditions, right here at home, outside the dangers of the war zone, that made those deployments successful so that people like Romani could speak to them. Tim Waltz should not try and advance his own service falsely to gain some notoriety, because when he does, he's slapping every soldier in the face who did not go to a hot zone and get shot at. It's like saying, "Hey, we don't really rate, so I had to lie in public to make sure that everybody thought that I was something that I'm not." Look, me talking again, I personally served for 14 years before I went to war. But the 14 years that I served in peacetime, they were still a treasure to me. And if I had stopped there, I'd still be proud. Tim Waltz is apparently insecure. He needed to enhance his resume. And that is a character flaw that should not then be allowed to distort a military fact in order to go and lead the military as a potential commander-in-chief. I say no. Duty, honor, country, it's far more than just a phrase. It's not some melodramatic intonation of old-school promises. It's real to the vast majority of Americans. I mean, sure, the news network wants you to think that critical race theory and Antifa and white supremacists and Black Lives Matter, that those things and those fringe elements are the core of who we are. They're not. In some way, they are not at all the true nature of who we are. They most certainly are not. The core of our citizenry, who we are as Americans, recognize the value of our national heritage. The vast majority of Americans will fly the flag, stand for the anthem, and volunteer for the cause. Duty, honor, country. We honor our veterans without asking where they served or what rank they achieved, not in the sense that it serves as a qualifier of their duty, their honor, their country. Nobody does that. But apparently Tim Waltz does. Tim Waltz needs to make sure that you know he did things he didn't do, that he achieved rank that he didn't achieve, that he went to places that he didn't really go. General Douglas MacArthur elaborated on those concepts of duty, honor, and country in an iconic speech at West Point in 1962. In one segment, he said those three words, symbolize, quote, a great moral code, a code of conduct and chivalry of those who guard this beloved land of culture and ancient descent. For all hours and for all time, it is an expression of the ethics of the American soldier. He said that I should be integrated in this way with so noble an ideal arouses a sense of pride and yet of humility, which will be with me always. Did you hear that? A great moral code. Does Tim Waltz understand there's a moral code to service, and you don't lie about it? MacArthur went on to say, duty, honor, country. Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. They are your rallying point to build courage when courage seems to fail, to regain faith when there seems to be little cause for faith, to recreate hope when hope becomes forlorn. The unbelievers, MacArthur said, will say they are but words, but a slogan, but a flamboyant phrase. But every demagogue, every cynic, every hypocrite, every troublemaker, and I'm sorry to say some others of an entirely different character, will try to downgrade them, even to the extent of mockery and ridicule. And I will just jump in here and say that but Tim Waltz portraying something that wasn't real about his military career in order to advance his cause as a politician is another version of mockery and ridicule. He's dishonoring the names of those with whom he served, because by advancing his own embellishments, he basically said that what they did with him at the time when they were in peace was not good enough, and he had to make it look better. MacArthur finished by saying, these are some of the things they do. They build your basic character. They mold you for your future role as custodians of the nation's defense. They make you strong enough to know when you are weak and brave enough to face yourself when you're afraid. And I see that where MacArthur calls it building your basic character, that something in Tim Waltz didn't get built. I want a commander-in-chief who gets that. I want duty, honor, country to be emblazoned on the walls of the Oval Office. I don't care if a president has never served in the military, or if the president served during peacetime, or if the president won the Medal of Honor, but just don't lie about it. Don't attempt to worm your way into the hearts of men to earn their votes by pretending to be more than you are. It's not too much to ask. In fact, it's a reasonable expectation. There are very few bastions of goodness and strength left in our society, but one of those great few is the U.S. military. No one deserves to be in a position of authority over our troops who dared to take their time in vain and dishonor those who they served with before by trying to lie about the career in order to advance the cause. To all of you who served, in any capacity, in peacetime or war, you did not do that in vain. Your honor is intact. And Tim Waltz ought to be ashamed for taking their names in vain. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Big Rig, thank you for your service. The Air Force would not fly without people like you. Cool? And listen, I'm saying the same thing to all of you out there. I mean, the idea that Tim Waltz has to pretend he's something he's not, what he's really doing is saying that those he was with didn't do enough either, so he had to lie about all their stories in order to make himself look better, and that's just wrong. It's wrong on a variety of levels. Duty, honor, country. Does he have it? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. 2:25 p.m. here on a Turbo Thursday. Text lines are open, so is the call line. Same number for both, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. I imagine we're going to spend a little time on this one based on the way the text lines exploded after that monologue. So yeah, I had a suspicion this would be. I think this is the hot topic. Before I get into the text lines, though, let me just jump on and tell you real quick that we have breaking news a moment ago. It has been announced that Trump has agreed to do 3 debates with Kamala Harris in September. So Kamala was talking smack the other day. You won't ever show up. Come on, big boy, where you at? Well, guess what? How you like him now? Looks like he got 3 debates. He agreed to the ABC debate, which I think was the one that was already on the books with Biden. That would be September 10th, I believe, ABC, I think it was. And he's asked for 2 more. So we'll see. And he's also, I didn't get to see the press conference because I was literally in last minute show prep, but Trump was doing a live presser a moment ago. But I know one of the things he was pointing out was that Kamala Harris has not even talked to the press in 18 days. And that is just unbelievable. I mean, first of all, she's a vice president of the United States. And there's a lot going on in the world right now. You'd think she'd have something to say. You think. At the same time, she just took over. This is historic. I mean, think about it. She just took over from the actual voted upon winner of the Democrat primary, Joe Biden, who stepped aside to let her take the role, and she has not held a press conference to answer anything to the press in 18 straight days. She's not even the unofficial nominee. Now she is the one. She is the last man standing. Well, woman. But and she's got her nominee for VP on the ticket, and they're already out campaigning. So where they have the opportunity, they got the great scripts going. They got the great opportunity to read from the teleprompter, wave at the crowd, be in the friendly environments, but they're not doing anything, where it could get dicey. Gosh, we can't have somebody from the media ask her a hard question. She might cackle. She might go into a word salad. Hey, you know what, Big Rig? Go ahead and get that thing ready, man. I'm just saying, this is you got to replay that thing like every day for the next several months, I believe. All right, I get a few text messages here. What we got? TL says, Phil, a well-reasoned monologue. Thank you, sir. On a sensitive subject. Pastor A.R. Bernard said, quote, decisions are not made in a moment of time. They are rooted in your character. That is where your actions proceed from. I don't think we'll be able to expect anything better from Governor Walz. He has and continues to demonstrate a lack of character. I agree, TL. I mean, absolutely. Jerry from Decatur says, Timmy being Tim Walz, Timmy reminds me of what we call a PX soldier in my time of service, a self-promoting, self-glorifying deceiver. His fraternization with the Chinese reminds me of Obama's comment, they're not bad people, folks. Well, hey, they're communists. Airborne. Jerry, airborne, thank you for your service. Tom from Auburn, Alabama says, I was in the Navy in 82-83. My ship supplied the ships off the coast of Beirut during the time of the barracks bombings. We sat off the coast and did helicopter replenishments and alongside replenishments. One of my old buddies was a Beirut veteran, wears a Beirut veteran hat every time I see him in pictures. It kind of irks me. Marines died in that bombing. You would think that he was there with them. Well, and again, that's going to be something he has to wrestle with. I will say this. He's a veteran. You're a veteran. Go with pride. But yeah, if he's trying to do it so that people will think that he was at the barracks, that's a whole different story. Ed P. from Huntsville. Phil is a humble member of the Long Gray Line. Well, thank you, sir. I'm glad to hear that. All I can say is well done on your monologue. General MacArthur's farewell address to the Corps of Cadets at West Point is the most moving patriotic speech I've ever heard. It's one of my favorites, Ed P. And thanks for your service. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. I'm talking about Alabama, y'all. I mean to say this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, text lines, like I said, are open. I'm going to catch up on a few of those, one of whom I just met the other night. We got a brand new guy in there, if you wouldn't mind. I think you can just plug him in. And he's Chuck from Guntersville. Chuck and I met the other night when I spoke at the Republican Party in Guntersville, 101st Airborne vet. And he says, outstanding words, Phil. The Minnesota governor should be shamed on many fronts, but the latest is a slap in the face of soldiers who fought in Iraq, who served, doing their job, and doing it with integrity. Duty, honor, country. Thank you, Chuck. Man, it's good to meet you, too, by the way. Thank you very much. Jeff from Indiana says, it's a long text, Jeff. Man. Says, Phil, I am sorry to say, but the only people that care about Tim Walz lying about his service aren't voting for the Democrats anyway. And the people who do vote Democrat know they are liars and cheaters, but they don't care as long as the outcome's in their favor. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but people who are Republicans generally are people that have morals and conscience, while generally speaking, Democrats have, I think it says black morals, like no morals, and that little conscience, that's why when it comes down to theft, abortion, and everything else that's wrong in the world, they mostly don't have a problem with it. He was apparently just speaking stream of consciousness while he was voice texting as he went down the road. He said liberalism is a mental disorder. All right, Jeff, it doesn't happen often, but I'm going to disagree with you. And I'm going to give you a reason why in a minute. But I'll go ahead and tease it first and just say, go back and look at 2004, the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth. Because what happens is, I really believe that while there may be people out there who are undecided in their vote still matters. And they are swayed by things that go straight to the core of who we are as a people. So while I agree with you that the Democrats are going to vote for Walz, the core base Democrats are going to vote for Walz no matter what, I think Walz's record could generate voter apathy and leave some at home. They just don't worry about it. I think it could also generate some swing voters who were independents that were not sure what they're going to do, who then go, I can't do that, man. I can't vote for a guy who did that. So I really think this does have the potential. The question is, what's his campaign going to do to right the ship? Because right now it's gaining steam, and depends on how long he lets it fester before we see where it is. John from Huntsville says, Phil, you keep messing up. What's he saying? You keep messaging. I thought he said messing up.
You keep messing up his "Did you hear?" questions. Oh,
okay. I'm sorry. Did you have 3 Taylor Swift concerts you wanted to talk about? I'm not sure what's going on here. John, where are you right now? He says, I didn't see his first message. He says, Phil, fantastic monologue. By the way, I'm currently listening to a live Donald Trump press conference from Mar-a-Lago on the Salem News Channel, and Trump said some pretty awesome stuff. Also, did you hear Trump has agreed to 3 debates? Well, John, I just said that. Oh, that's what he's saying. I jumped in on it. Okay, now I got you. John, work with us, brother. Dorothy from Elkmont says Tampon Tim is a disgrace. Okay. Bruce from Hazel Green says, It's a crying shame saying he thinks that. Okay, brother, you must have been voice texting here. He said it's a crying, I guess, shame that he thinks that he has to embellish on his record. There you go, to get to where he's wanting to be. Just stand up and be proud of what you've done and show the pride in the American way. Yeah, I totally get it. Look, you don't have to have been a Medal of Honor winner. You don't have to have been, a Navy SEAL with 19 deployments. You don't. If you served in a peacetime environment in a support role, great. Thank you for your service. Let it be what it was and move on. John from Harvestville, spot on monologue. Thank you. Despite the media's gaslighting efforts, I can still hear the majestic call of the Blue Falcon. Yeah. This may sound harsh, but Walz is a self-serving fraud and a coward. All right, 2 more. Well, golly, it doesn't stop, man. It just keeps on going. I knew this topic would go viral. Jenny from Decatur says, all I hear from my Democrat friends is Trump's a liar. All it does is lie. They haven't said one peep about Walz, nothing. They will. They can't hide from it too long. Morgan from Fort Myers, Florida says, I've always made it clear that while I served during Desert Storm, I never served in combat. There's a difference. His embellishments are bad, but him retiring before his deployment is inexcusable. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because they're trying to downplay that, by the way. Dave from Madison sends me something that didn't come through. So, Dave, you're trying to send something that didn't make it. Jeremy from Madison says, Doc Brown is referring to the striking of the clock tower by lightning in Hill Valley as the temporal junction. Oh, he's talking about the temporal junction of the space-time continuum. Yes.
Who is?
That's from the sound effect you got earlier. Yeah. All right, listen, let me jump in the Dipper material. What is stolen valor? Let's cover that first. What is stolen valor? I'm going to give you two versions of it. The first is you need to know, yes, there is an actual legal crime related to stolen valor. There is a definable, legal, punishable crime called stolen valor. And then you get into things that may be waltz, that are what I would call perhaps not criminal, rising to the point of criminal, but they are at the very least moral and ethical dilemmas that should not have taken place. And I question his morals and ethics. But here's the stolen valor piece. So just so you know, there's a Stolen Valor Act. It's federal. It covers the entire United States. There is no state exempt from it. The Stolen Valor Act, I mean, this particular piece that I pulled off of a Veterans Care website, it points out that, I mean, basically it's lying about your identity, claiming military service, rank, or recognition, right? Okay, we kind of have that. But whether it's a crime or not is definable. It can be a little more complex. There can be some nuance to it. I mean, you may find that you have someone whose unit was, here's an example. Let's say you're in a unit that was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation. It's a high honor. So my unit was awarded a Meritorious Unit Citation, and then the unit that I was attached to in Baghdad was awarded a Presidential Unit Citation. When you serve with them at the time when it is earned, it is yours to wear for life. While you serve in the unit, you can wear it as a member of the unit, but when you leave the unit, you take it off if you weren't there when it was earned. Does that make sense? So what I'm saying there is it's possible for someone to be down the road and this ribbon on their uniform is still there, and they didn't think about the fact that I should have taken it off when I left Fort Bragg or wherever. That would not be stolen valor because they were not attempting to gain from it. They were not attempting to portray themselves in some way. It could be a mistake that says, oh, shoot, I got to fix this, but there was no criminal intent. Now, if they put on that Presidential Unit Citation and walked strutting around their new post saying, look at me, I got a puck, I got a Presidential Unit Citation, I'm the man. I was with a unit that did some stuff, and you weren't really there, different story. All right, now, but let's get out of the weeds here. Where did this come from? Stolen Valor Act of 2005. We did. 2005. There's a whole lot of stuff happening. We're pretty close after 9/11. The war is kicking up, and there's apparently there's a general amount of concern, and there's also, we're gonna get to it in a minute. This is not long after the entire situation where the Swift Boat veterans went after John Kerry. Bam, Stolen Valor Act of 2005 shows up right after the 2004 election. It was legislation that made it a misdemeanor, just a misdemeanor, but it made it a misdemeanor to wear any kind of medal or claim any kind of honor of military service that was not yours. Believe it or not, the U.S. Supreme Court got involved. Why? Because there was a guy named Xavier Alvarez who was a state official, and I've forgotten where, I don't remember the details of his case, but it was believed that he was wearing, and in fact it was proven that he was wearing something that was not his to wear. He got in some trouble. And in 2012, he decided to go after the case, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, and they declared the legislation was unconstitutional, that by him wearing something, it was a matter of free speech. Come on. You look at it and go, my gosh. I mean, I might wear a New York Yankees hat, but I don't walk around saying I played for the Yankees, right? But if you're wearing a Special Forces hat and telling people that's because you were in the unit, that's a different story. Anyway, so it went away, sort of. Like it was deemed unconstitutional, but it was still on the books. So in 2013, Congress came back. Congress came back with new stolen valor rules, but they had a new caveat on it. Now, it says, believe it or not, they defined it very specifically. Now you have to have resulted, it has to have resulted, like there has to have been an outcome. It has to have resulted in some kind of tangible benefit. And that tangible benefit, by the way, can be something like you used it to help yourself get elected. Okay? But the new Stolen Valor Act actually identifies special protections for certain military awards. The Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, Navy Cross, Air Force Cross, Silver Star, Purple Heart, Combat Action Badge, Combat Action Ribbon. And so it's very specific this time. They narrowed it, they gave it a narrow construction so that it would meet the constitutional requirements of the previous case. All right, all that to say, where are we? You don't have Waltz out there claiming to have won a medal. He never said that. You may be wondering, okay, what did he do? Here's a quick synopsis in case you haven't already heard. And then I'm going to jump back after the break and give you some more stuff. The quick synopsis is this. Waltz was a member of the Minnesota National Guard. And by the way, the Minnesota National Guard is pretty squared away. I believe the Red Bulls, the massive infantry division, is it 34th Infantry Division, I think, is headquartered out of Minnesota. And they're pretty solid. Waltz was a senior NCO, an E8, which is a big deal. He was an E8 with 20 plus years of service. He already deployed once, but he deployed to Italy because in Italy they were helping, as the 173rd Airborne Brigade, which is stationed in Italy, went forward. They went over there to sort of man the post and sort of provide support to the forward operations. So he was in a non-combat zone deployment in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Did not go to war. Okay, still important. Still an E8. Still a member of a field artillery battalion, combat arms, king of battle. I like it. But then he got tapped for command sergeant major. Y'all, to be a battalion command sergeant major is one of the best jobs in the NCO world. I had a chance to be a battalion commander. I've had a chance to be a company commander. I've had a chance to be on staff. I've had a chance to be a team leader, a platoon leader, all of it. One of the best roles I ever had was as a battalion commander, and the battalion command sergeant major is equally as awesome. I mean, you are a man of the troops. And you've got, 4 or 5 companies of troops under you. And to be a battalion command sergeant major is a big deal. So he's going to be a CSM, an E9. He signed up for the Command Sergeant Major's Academy. He signed a waiver saying, if I continue through the Command Sergeant Major's Academy, I will stay in for X number of years. Except, then they got a warning order. So he was notionally, basically he was frocked, they call it, frocked as a Command Sergeant Major pending the outcome of his academy. Functioning in the role, but not really the rank. And then he decided he wanted to run for Congress, about a month or so after they got their deployment order to go to Iraq. So here's his troops going to the war zone, to the shooting place. All of his troops, the thing they signed up to be a part of. And what did he do? He dropped his papers, retired, he quit the Command Sergeant Major's Academy, and he went out there and he said, I retired as a Command Sergeant Major, except he didn't. They reduced him back to E8, Master Sergeant. He told people in a speech that I carried weapons in a war zone. He didn't. He never did. I mean, it's a mess, y'all. It's not good. All right, we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. When we come right back, we're going to dive back in history for a minute. Remember the Swift Boat veterans? If you don't, you're about to get an earful. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
All right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Man, making common sense like a superpower. Hey, we are back right now, and I'm gonna keep going on the Stolen Valor theme for a minute, but I want to harken back in time for a minute.
What?
The reality is that you've got history on this. You've got real history. Now, I know Jeff from Indiana is trying to tell me that 2004 is too long ago for this kind of thing to matter, but I listen. I think what goes around comes around. I think this has still got legs, man. So I just believe it does. There's an ad that came out in 2004. So John Kerry, you may remember John Kerry. He's still around. He's still out there, lecturing us every day with his dry tones as he speaks. I think you should not fly your planes, as he flies his plane to Iceland to receive a climate, award. John Kerry was actually a Vietnam vet, and he was in what was called the Brown Water Navy. He was a swift boat guy. He was like these small gunboats that ran the rivers through the Mekong Delta in that area, and that's pretty cool duty. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of harkens back to John F. Kennedy in World War II being on the PT boats, and yet there was some question about whether he was a grandstander who made sure he got awards by working and gaming the system that were kind of a stretch, right? And I look at this and go, wow, that's interesting. John Kerry, I don't know. He's a Vietnam vet. Had a Silver Star, 2 Purple Hearts, I think it was, and then he began to speak out against the war after he got back. So bottom line is, Kerry came back from Vietnam and he became a Vietnam protester. And he wore his ribbons and he spoke as one with authority, believing that he had the right to speak because he had been there. Okay, I get that. The First Amendment, the whole thing, he's speaking. He began to speak before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, calling the war a mistake. But then he began to go further. He didn't just say, I'm against the people making decisions in D.C. He began to talk against the troops and talk about war crimes that are being committed, allegedly. There's a fine line, by the way. There's a fine line between protesting D.C. and dishonoring the troops who are out in the bush. And Kerry was stepping over the line and made a lot of people mad. And then the swift boat veterans that he had served with decided that when he was running for president in 2004, they were not going to sit still on this. They've been quiet for years as he served in the U.S. Senate. But then he suddenly had the position in front of him where he might be the one making decisions about the military, a.k.a. Tim Walz, and they were having none of it. And so a group put themselves together called the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, and they had an ad. Big Rig, you got that audio clip? How am I doing on time? Do I have time to play it? Is it too close? And we may play it. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and do it. This ad played in 2004, and it was considered a turning point in the campaign. Go ahead and play it.
Command, which is critical of John Kerry's Vietnam War record. Both authors are also part of a veterans group that released this ad.
If you have any question about what John Kerry's made of, just spend 3 minutes with the men who served with him.
I served with John Kerry.
I served with John Kerry.
John Kerry has not been honest about what happened in Vietnam.
He is lying about his record.
I know John Kerry is lying about his first Purple Heart because I treated him for that injury.
John Kerry lied to get his Bronze Star. I know. I was there. I saw what happened.
His account of what happened and what actually happened are the difference between night and day.
John Kerry has not been honest.
And he lacks the capacity to lead.
When the chips were down, you could not count on John Kerry.
John Kerry is no war hero.
He betrayed all his shipmates. He lied before the Senate.
John Kerry betrayed the men and women he served with in Vietnam.
He dishonored his country. He most certainly did.
I served with John Kerry. John Kerry cannot be trusted.
Swift Boat Veterans for Truth is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
That ad was considered a turning point. And when I get back, I'm going to tell you why it matters, because the term swift boating is being used again right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, I knew this would be this way. We're on the topic stolen valor with regards to Tim Walz, who is currently the VP candidate for the Democrat Party, the governor of the state of Minnesota, a former congressman. Now, somebody who knows all about service is just called in out of the blue, and I'm glad to have him on. So former U.S. Attorney Jay Town, who is himself a former Marine, is on the line right now with a few thoughts. Jay Town, how you doing, buddy?
Phil, I really appreciate you taking my call at the last moment. I know you have a packed show, as always, just plain right. But I had to call in because Tim Walz is just plain wrong, and I want to talk about it.
All right, what you got, brother?
Well, so here's the thing. You served, I served. We live in a community chock full of individuals that served their country for a period of time. And one thing is true. You do not ever lie about your rank, and you do not lie about your deployments. And here's what I mean by lying about your deployments. I am sure that every good thing that I did in the Marine Corps, I had my shirt off, I packed a dip before it all started and put it in, right? I had the American flag in one hand, right? But at the same time, I never confused my role, myself, with the trigger pullers that were in a war zone. So I served in the Marines for 12 years. I served the state of Alabama for 13. I served in the Department of Justice from 17 to 20 under Trump. Never once did I confuse what I've done for my state, for my God, for my country, for my fellow man, fellow Marines, with being a trigger puller on the front lines or fighting a war or having carried a weapon in war. Tim Walz's boots never once got sandy. They never slipped on the shale in Afghanistan. He never got sand in his boot and had to dig a hole in Iraq. This man fought his war from the conditioned air of a warehouse in Italy. And then when he got orders to Iraq, and he was the leader of the largest group of men in a unit as the senior CO, he bailed on him immediately.
Did we lose him? You still there, Jay? Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Jay, we lost you there for a second. He said he bailed and then what?
He bailed and found another gig.
Yeah.
And so now, fine, okay. But you can't say that you didn't. You can't say that you went and fought a war, that you carried a weapon of war in war. You can't lie about your rank and say that you were a command sergeant major when you weren't.
Yeah.
You bailed on your men and retired before you could actually achieve that rank. He was flopped for a moment. And so it is beyond shameless that this man has been saying this for about 20 years now. And when the Harris campaign vetted him for vice president, they knew about this, but they didn't care. And I'll suggest that if you'll lie about what you did in the course of your military service to make yourself look better, there is nothing you will not lie about.
Yeah, brother. I mean, I remember a senior attorney when I was a freshman attorney. I was standing there. I was helping him. I was second chair in a trial, and he was talking to the jury, and he said, in regards to one of the witnesses, he said to the jury, "My granddaddy always told me if you'll lie about a little, you'll lie about a lot." And and I think that applies here. Although I don't think this is a little. I think this is significant. Here, let me ask you this real quick before you go. Does this make a difference to the voters? Is this going to be a swift vote moment, or is this going to be something that's a fleeting discrepancy?
Well, remember, they chose Walz because they thought he would appeal to that rural voter, to that Midwestern folk, right? Well, you know what? Those are some of the most patriotic people in America. Yeah. And regardless of, what they think about taxes or who should be doing what in our school systems, they wave that American flag. That's something that's in their blood, and that was passed down from the very first generation in their family. And when you lie about your patriotism and service to God and country, yeah, that's a big deal. You don't get to do that.
Yeah.
That's shameful. That's absolutely shameful and disrespectful to every man and woman that has ever served in uniform, especially those that have served in a war.
Totally get it, man. That's my monologue for the day, as a matter of fact. But, hey, listen, J-Town, thank you for your service. Semper Fi to you, and thanks for calling in.
Hoorah, Phil. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that was a good call. And listen, I so appreciated what he said because Jay has honorable service for a number of years, but I love the fact that he said he's had the opportunity to be in the public eye. He didn't say it that way, but what he basically said was he chose to never try and portray himself as something that he was not. And I get it. I mean, listen, I would be heartbroken if I found out that somebody thought that I lied about my service. Because, you know, there's few things in life you have that is just really yours, but your name is one of them. And you don't want your integrity to be impugned because now if you accidentally say something or somebody misread something, I get it. Or somebody, and I've had it happen before where I'm in public eye and somebody writes something about me and I have to call with a correction. Hey, that's not exactly right. And thank you for saying that, but I was not this, I was that. Okay. I was not in a, like for instance, I'm Ranger qualified. I was not in the Ranger Regiment. He was an airborne Ranger. Yes, I am. I'm airborne Ranger qualified. I was a paratrooper. I certainly jumped out of airplanes a lot. I was a jump master. I did all the things. I was a pathfinder. I was down range twice, and I was in frontline areas. But I will not portray myself as having been part of the Ranger Regiment. And I did have somebody, I can't think where it was, who said that he was in the Rangers. No, that's a different thing. That's a unit called the Rangers. Anyway, all I'm saying is this. You don't let it sit. You correct the record. You make sure the record stays clean because there are a lot of people out there that care. And look at the community of Huntsville. Right now, I mean, Redstone Arsenal. There are so many retirees. I mean, you cannot swing a dead cat without finding somebody who will understand what your DD-214 means. If you try to talk about your service, they know how to check your record. If you say you were somewhere, they may have been there themselves. They may start asking you questions that make you uncomfortable, so you better make sure you keep your facts straight. Let's go back to the Swift Boat thing. I ran that ad right before the break. That Swift Boat ad, it wound up having a huge impact. The attacks on 9/11 were pretty fresh. Democrat Party Chair Terry McAuliffe thought Kerry's, quote, chest full of medals was his strongest asset. And then in 2004, they had a brand new thing called talk radio that was really cranking. You had 24-hour news service that was really going strong all of a sudden. You had blogs. You had conservative veins among the news media in places like Fox that hadn't been there before. And all of a sudden, Swift Boat Veterans for Truth found their day. And they came out with that ad. And the advertisement, it says, ushered in a period of decline for the Kerry campaign. They had to start shepherding their resources. They couldn't gain traction. They waited too long to respond to it, so they didn't try to correct the record because they thought it would go away, and it wouldn't go away. And by August 30th, it says, as the Republican National Convention began, Kerry and Bush were polling neck and neck again, whereas Kerry had been 3 points ahead. The Swift Boat campaign is seen as one of the things that killed the John Kerry campaign. Praise God. Story on Politico. Politico. Phil, did you go to Politico? I did. Story on Politico. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance slammed the timing of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's retirement from a 2 decades-long military career as avoiding a deployment to Iraq. The headline says, Vance runs a swift boat attack against Walz's military service. That's where we are. Is it a swift boat attack? Is it stolen valor? Well, listen. Politico is quick to say, there's no evidence that Walz retired to avoid a wartime deployment. Okay. J-Town will tell you, and I will too as an attorney, that circumstantial evidence is still evidence. If I have a man who is a senior member of his unit, who knows more than anybody what a warning order means, who gets a warning order that says Iraq by a certain date, and a month later he drops his papers when he had already said he would stay in for several more years as the command sergeant major. When I see that, what am I supposed to think? Circumstantial evidence? Perhaps. I call it a prima facie case that he's got basically the burden of proof shifted back to him to prove not. And that's where it is right now. The burden of proof is shifted back to Tim Walz. It's up to him to say, why we're wrong, because we can see what we can see. Bottom line is, keep in mind too, Al Gore. The Democrats loved that they had Al Gore. He's a veteran. He was a veteran. Well, they're trying to pick right now, Politico dared to say, about Vance, J.D. Vance, a Marine. Keep in mind, J.D. Vance was a Marine combat correspondent. He was like combat camera, combat correspondent. He went over there and he wrote stories about what was happening with the men under fire. And they say he was a Marine who did not experience combat. Really? I don't know that for a fact, but I do know this. He deployed to the war zone. And he's a combat correspondent. Well, are you denigrating his service? I thought we couldn't do that. Never mind the fact that, wasn't Al Gore in Vietnam for 6 months as a combat camera guy? And they thought that was awesome. Listen, they're going to do this about George W. Bush. They're going to do it about J.D. Vance. And then boom, all of a sudden they got one of their own who has a false record. We're taking a break right now. We'll come right back and put a lid on this one. Going to take some time with Butters and Lee at the bottom of the hour. And they got a caller coming up at the top of the next hour who's going to give us the insights he has on stolen valor. It's a day of a dipper, man. A viral dipper. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Giving you all the truth you can put on a bumper sticker. Text lines are going crazy. I got to catch up on those here momentarily. Don't forget, coming up to bottom of the hour, we're going to have Butters and Lee. And before I go much further, let me just jump in here real quickly and remind you guys. So one of our newest sponsors is Inspire Advisors. And I was talking to the guy this morning, Paul Breyer himself, about coming on the show, and we may have him on again sometime soon. The other day he was supposed to be on, the phones got jacked, but nonetheless, what they do is incredible. And I love this because I know how y'all are out there. This audience is amazing. You're a bunch of people who will stand up for your beliefs and you care about things, and you may find out that some of your investments or things that you've got in your retirement plan, they don't even stand up for what you believe in. They are like investment portfolio matters that could be going to things like abortion and pornography and whatnot. Well, Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors, they are experts in what's known as BRI, Biblically Responsible Investing. They can impact your bottom line positively and still keep you in a place where you're comfortable with who you're investing in. And they'd love to sit down with you for free in person and say, here's what you got, here's what we see. There's some biblically aligned alternatives you might want to know about. No fuss, no muss, no hitch, no upsell. Just make sure you're aware. Inspire Advisors is good at it. If you want to know more about them or get an appointment with them just to do that, you can find them at their website, www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's moneypatternwealth.com. You can also, by the way, go to our website, rightsidemedia.org, and you can click on their logo at the Rightside Radio Sponsors tab. You can click on their logo, takes you straight to their website. Listen, Inspire Advisors, biblically responsible investing. Conservative, it's godly, it's balanced, it's financial freedom, y'all, with Inspire Advisors. Check it out. So, moving this thing forward just a little bit more. Did he say he went to war, Tim Waltz? Yeah, he did. I watched the video. Here's what he said, literally. Piece I got on Fox News. Dateline today. This is what he said in the video, and I don't have the video to be able to play it for you at the moment, but his quote was, he was by the way, it was a quote about gun control. So he's all about gun control. There's that. He said, I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment. We can do background checks. We can research the impacts of gun violence. We can make sure those weapons of war that I carried in war are only carried in war. He didn't ever carry one in war. He got himself all in the moment there, and he said something. And what he should have done thereafter is, I need to clarify something. I did not carry them myself. I was trying to save somebody anyway. He didn't do that. He let it ride, man. Why? Because he's insecure. Now, CNN's doing what they can to try and correct things. CNN's doing a fact check. Hey, now, come on. Is he really what he's... Listen, CNN even got it handed to him the other day. And CNN correspondent Tom Foreman delivered a fact check basically pointing out he said he carried weapons in a time of war. And he said this. He said, as you know, with your contact with the military, I know coming from a military family, this is Foreman himself talking, there's a difference between being in a combat area, being involved in a time of war, and actually being in a position where people are shooting at you. Kind of common sense, but there it is. He said, so it's absolutely false when he said that about guns right there. Does it matter? Here's the thing. I believe that this is something that they tried to take a gamble on. I believe that Kamala Harris is not known for making good political decisions. But I believe they knew, they could not know. I believe they decided to blow it off. Well, I got elected governor and they got by with that one, so maybe it'd be... I don't know that you can always get by. When the powers that be are not there to protect you in your smaller bubble. So will it get legs? Is it the kind of thing that could become a swift boat moment? Or are we going to stop talking about it by next week? Well, I'll be honest with you. As a conservative veteran, I'm not going to stop talking about it, but I'm a conservative veteran. But I really believe that there are centrist and somewhat apolitical veterans and people who care out there who this is going to wind up making a difference for them. And some of them are going to be single issue voters. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little agnostic on the LGBTQ agenda, and abortion. I'm kind of soft on that, and fiscal policy. I believe the government ought to step in and help people more often. And he did what about his military service? Well, I can't do that. My daddy was in the military. You watch; those conversations are going to be had. And so suddenly the thing that is still a thing, y'all, we may have liberal screamers and Antifa members and Black Lives Matter riots. We may have people on the world stage who are getting clickbait out of their social media by saying awful things about the United States, but the heartland of America still waves the flag. And I honest to God believe that the vast majority of Americans care about stuff like this. I cannot help but believe they care about it. And if you have to find a single issue, then I would say look for this one, because this goes beyond policy. This is an actual character flaw. This is a thing that he could have chosen to fix at any given time. Lord, he's a governor. He has a staff to help him fix stuff like this. And he let it ride. And yeah, I believe it's stolen valor. Even if it's only moral and ethical, it's still stolen valor. All right, coming up next, Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, I am talking about Alabama. Y'all, this show goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. All right, pause. That's enough of me talking for a bit. Let me bring in some people that also mean a lot to this show, and they bring a lot to the table. And that's our friends Butters and Lee from Huntsville. So we do this segment once a week on Thursdays. We like to call it Butters and Lee. And let me first call the roll. Lee from Huntsville, are you present?
I am.
You are ready to go. Okay. I can hear it in your voice. And then, right out there, just the former Navy pilot guy himself, Butters, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And just to correct the record, I was a naval flight officer, a navigator, not a pilot.
I tested you right there. Did you see that?
I've been listening.
No, I tell you what. I pronounce it time. It is Butters and Lee. All right, what did you say right then, Lee, as we're going to the whoop whoops?
I said he was Goose, not Maverick.
Still, that's right. He flew.
It's still awesome.
I'll tell you what. Let's just keep that thread going, though. I've got this thing going today. So far, the show has been all about the stolen valor thing, the swift boating of John Kerry. Did it matter for Al Gore? What they tried to do, I didn't even get to it, but what they tried to do to George W. about his flight service in the Air National Guard back, during his campaign. So let me ask you this, Tim Waltz, is it stolen valor? And does it matter in the voting sense? Butters, you first, man.
Well, it's funny. So my sister called from the Megyn Kelly show. Apparently, she's been talking about this topic as well, and she was trying to get some stuff straightened out this morning with me. So I've been thinking about it all day. It obviously matters a lot to those of us that really care. I think there's a lot of people that were going to vote for Trump or are going to vote for Trump that were already, they're going to be really passionate about it. It definitely seems like there's a lot of muddiness that makes me pretty unhappy when it seems so straightforward. You had honorable service. Just represent that, just like I did in correcting you with, whether I was a pilot or not.
Yep.
So it seems, I think, though, we need to be careful on how much it becomes a thing that it turns off people that we really need to pull over to the other side.
How do we do that? How do we turn people off? What are you saying?
Well, I think we can make it. We can get into the minutia. Does it really matter whether I'm a pilot or a navigator? There's a lot of people that aren't really gonna. They're gonna hear that and go, "Oh, God, I just can't." I'm not saying they don't care about the military and all that kind of stuff, but I think we can get lost in the minutia of it if we're not careful. I'm not saying don't talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying I think we got to be a little careful that we don't miss the forest for the trees.
Okay, so before we go to Lee, then let me ask you this, and I think you kind of alluded to it, but does it make a difference in the vote? Does it go the swift boat route that we saw on John Kerry?
I don't think it's different times, different distribution of information and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it'll make as big a difference.
Okay. Lee, your thoughts. Is it stolen valor? Does it make a difference?
It is stolen valor to me. It's three-pronged. First off, he said, he keeps saying he's a retired, and you'll have to tell me the rank, but
Command Sergeant Major.
He's saying he's a retired Command Sergeant Major. He's not. And he knows that.
Yeah.
And he understands that he left and did not complete the training or the required schooling or the required time period to attain that rank, to be certified as that rank, right? So he didn't retire at that rank. He retired at a lower rank, and he needs to say that. And what gets me is no one would really know the difference. So I don't know why he's doing that, except for he's arrogant. It's not like, I think he would be, a master sergeant or something?
Yeah.
Whatever, nobody's going to know the difference. Just say what your true rank is. Why make trouble for yourself? But I think that's arrogant. That's narcissism. And the second is that he claims he, carried arms in war or whatever. Now look, he knows he wasn't in Iraq. Now, okay, he could say he served overseas. That would have been fine, right? Because Italy, technically overseas. Don't remember an Italian war. So, again, you're trying to fluff up your resume there with something that's not quite right. My dad says he was a Vietnam-era veteran. He did not go to Vietnam. He was in Germany. There's a difference. He still, he was there. He was helping in his way at one of the big air bases, or one of the big bases. But I'm just saying he doesn't claim to have been in Vietnam, right?
Right.
Itself, like in the rice paddies or something. So that there is a difference, and he knows that, yet he keeps saying it to fluff himself up. And the third thing is, he got to notice that, hey, your whatever, it was a battalion or whatever, is going to war. And he's like, I'll be dipping out now. Thanks. See you guys later. And left. That's the biggest, to me, strike against him. He deserted his own men because he's a coward. It's not like he had to run for office right that second. No, sir. Don't even try that garbage. You left because you didn't want to go to the war because you didn't believe in it, because he was at anti-Bush rallies. He was, there was pictures taken of him at anti-Bush rallies.
Yeah.
He didn't go because he didn't believe in it. He just wanted the prestige of being in it, but then when it came to rubber meets the road, he left.
Okay, so let me
those three things.
That's a great summary. Let me jump in there and ask. Now, you said your dad was served in the military. Is that right?
Yes, he did.
All right. So,
retired from the military.
But you and your husband are not military yourself, correct?
No, we are not.
Okay. So, Butters, you personally served. Lee, you did not personally serve. Is the perspective, is this news about Tim Waltz, is it harder to be accepted by the military environment as opposed to the non-military environment? Your thoughts real quick, Butters.
I think, well, like I said, I think there's a lot of folks that are the conservative supporters that are, just diehard patriots that they're going to care about this. But
veterans in general, are veterans going to care more than non-veterans?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think we're going to care, and we're going to care about the details because we understand more of the details.
Lee, your thoughts?
Of course they're going to care more because they understand the environment and they understand the dedication. And the reason we even know about this is because his own people came out and said, hey, he's not who you think he is.
Yep.
That's how we know. That's how we know about Kerry and the Swift voters. They were like, hell no, he isn't going to come in here and try and take all this stolen glory. I don't think so. And they said, this is who he really is, giving himself a Purple Heart for, Band-Aids. This is why. And when your own men turn against you and say, no, he isn't who he says he is, you better listen because they know it.
All
but
right.
no, do I think it's going to make a big difference? He's not the presidential candidate. But the only problem is going to be is any vice presidential debates, and if somebody gets the courage enough to ask Kamala Harris about it and make her do a word salad on how he's not,
Well, the other thing that's going to be interesting is if they do a vice presidential debate, he's going to be standing on stage with an enlisted Marine. So it's not like
with an actual hero. Yeah,
exactly. All right, listen, we ran a little bit long on that one, but let me try one more question with you, and I'm going to change gears. All right, we've been for the last an hour and 45 minutes on the stolen valor thing, but I'm going to switch gears because Lee, you sent me a text this morning that just got all up under my skin. Dunkin' Donuts going woke. The heck, man? That's like. There was a time in my life when Dunkin' Donuts had such a special place that if I saw a Dunkin' in town, I felt like it was a sign of good luck. So Dunkin' Donuts, Harley Davidson, Bud Light, what the heck? What's going on? Real quick, Lee.
Quickly is that they're more concerned about the ESG scores or the environmental social governance scores, which some of these big companies like BlackRock and all these, they use them to help determine what kind of loans you can get and what rates. They're more concerned about that and kissing the rear end of those people than they are remembering who their actual customers are.
Butters, Dunkin' Donuts is going woke. How do you feel?
I would, it's shocking. Harley is infinitely more shocking. I saw some of the pictures of their booth or whatever at Sturgis and completely empty. I mean, talk about,
not knowing your audience.
Yeah. But I agree with Lee. It's the ESG. So don't forget, those are corporations that make profits for their investors. And investors don't really make money off of purchasing things, although that's a whole long economic discussion. They make money off of stocks going up.
That's right.
And that's where that ESG really rolls in with all that. And it's a long, complicated economic game, but it's pretty crazy and stupid. So hopefully some other motorcycle company can come in and take over, because that's
well, I read one report that said that Indian motorcycles has seen a uptick because they are not.
Heck yeah.
I mean,
love India.
People who want a motorcycle buy Harleys because they want to be known as the guys with the black leather with a Harley. It's like the midlife crisis, get a Harley. And then they just totally shot their image going DEI.
Do kind of wonder if back in the day, if a bunch of Harley riders would have just rolled up to Harley and taken care of the problem themselves.
Well, you know what? It might still happen. We'll go swift boating some Harleys. How about that? All right, round one of Butters and Lee. We will take a break right now. We'll come right back, and this is where we flip the script, and I just see what questions they have for me, and I don't even know what's coming yet. We'll see. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Back for round number 2 with Butters and Lee. This is where we flip the script and they ask me a question off the cuff and I see how I do. So I'm just going to hold my breath and go, Lee, you're first. What do you got for me?
So I am wondering about, we kind of touched on it, this suit that Elon Musk, as well as I think the CEO of Gab has also jumped in on. About they're suing them for collusion of some kind, I guess, for advertising. What I wonder from you, put your lawyer hat on, is how successful are they going to be? And they actually had somebody, or maybe it was Rumble, one of them, somebody put out one of the notes from like an email, like a portion, redacted everything from Dunkin' Donuts, where they basically just said, well, it's just too right-wing, we don't want to advertise. The same people that own them own Arby's, they own Sonic, there's a few others. And do you think they're just forgetting who the heck their base is, who's buying their stuff? Because elitists aren't rolling up to Sonic, I'm sorry.
Well, you kind of got I'm going to parse out the question a little bit. So the first part, is the suit have merit? Yeah, it does. I think it'll survive what we would call the motion to dismiss phase. And so here's the bottom line. X or Twitter and Rumble have sued this whole advertising trade group. And by the way, this is part of the show that I've got scheduled for later, so I already have stuff in front of me. But I call it monopoly money. But what they're saying right now, there's a major ruling that came out by a federal court the other day that found that Google was in violation of what's known as the Sherman Act. Section 2 of the Sherman Act is antitrust laws, monopolization, that they were not only monopolizing, but they were using their heavyweight status to try and steer people away from searching out certain things. And what they were doing was causing economic loss to companies that were not fitting their mold, if you will. Well, now you've got X and Rumble that are saying, we got hosed. And we want to know why, and we want to know who this other group is that was sort of in collusion with all this. And oh, by the way, this group is called GARM, Global Alliance for Responsible Media. They're the ones who were steering people and orchestrating boycotts and setting things up. So now you've got search patterns out of whack, and you've also got advertising patterns out of whack. And I think that X is going to be able to show true damages, and now they can actually trace it. So yeah, I think it has merit. I think it has legs.
Not to mention the publicity.
Good.
Yeah, and good publicity. You're right. It's this is one of those things too where the mere fact that they filed a lawsuit is going to be notorious to some degree, and people are going to go, wait, what's happening? Just like you and I are doing right now. So there's.
And do you think they've forgotten? Like, do you think they aren't thinking about their customer base enough to understand what they're doing here?
Listen, they were so caught up. This GARM group was so caught up in ESG that they could care less about their base. It was all about the agenda. That's why we just talked about Harley Davidson and Dunkin' Donuts. It's like they forget where they are and who their audience is, and they start thinking about an agenda first. Socially conscious consumers out there will know. No, they don't. They're not the ones buying Harleys, So maybe you can get by on people like me who are still going to probably wind up buying blueberry munchkins at Dunkin' Donuts with a cup of coffee. But I'm just saying, a lot of people are ticked off, and they just forgot their audience.
It's probably a lot of the same people that are making the decision that Tim Waltz is a good representative of the average everyday Midwesterner.
Just a good old boy, just a good old fella. He hunts and things and wears a hat and a T-shirt with no sleeves. He looks like, he looks like Larry the Cable Guy, just to be honest. But all right, question for me before we run out of time. Butters, what you got?
So have you been following any of this stuff that's going on with Neuralink, speaking of Elon Musk?
No, next question.
Recently they just got the second guy. So the Neuralink is, as they put it on their website, the brain-computer interface. So they've just gotten the second guy. They're looking for quadriplegics is what they're starting with, giving an implant in a guy's brain, and he can control a computer. And interesting stuff, but. Some of it, Elon Musk is saying it's kind of a pushback on AI to give you the ability to better control a computer. It's pretty wacky, crazy. Some discussion of Geordie LaForge from Star Trek being able to bring people's vision back and all sorts of stuff. So, thoughts about
you just went total Trekkie on me right there.
Hey, it's cool, but it's
total Trekkie,
crazy.
So this is early stage cyborg right here. This is like it's at some point you will be assimilated to the Borg, and you'll have to wear the eyepiece and the half armor and whatever else that they had on Star Trek. No, it's actually very cool. I'm aware of it. It's also very creepy, and I think it's one of those things that if it's used to enhance, for all the right reasons, great. The question is going to be when does it go too far? And just like every technology, there's a step that some people are always willing to take to go too far and push the ethical boundaries. And so I'm curious to see when they're going to start forcing things that weren't necessary, when they're going to start allowing someone to have access to your systems through their thoughts that you didn't know they had. And then at the same time, forget the original purpose was to do good for people who just need to be able to see or hear or move again. Go ahead.
Who's writing the algorithm for the thoughts that you're running?
The same people that wrote the AI algorithm that said that Trump was bad and Biden was good, right? It's a scary thought. I mean, AI, Neuralink, all this stuff's going to happen. It is, and that's why there's got to be ethical boundaries established. Just like when cloning first came out. Next thing you know, it's Dolly the sheep. It's not just Dolly the sheep. You've got like somebody choosing what kind of child they want to have born. And so you just got to be very careful with this stuff.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a very slippery slope. And we haven't exactly demonstrated great behavior with social media and infinite connectivity. Connecting my brain to all everybody listening is not really something I want anytime soon.
All right, Butters and Lee. Boy, that one stretched me. All right, that was good stuff. Appreciate you both. All right, you guys, listen, we're taking a break. We're coming right back for our last, and I've got Paul Crespo calling in. We're jumping back on that stolen valor contact, and then we'll get some text messages and get caught up. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3. The topic that has been viral today that has dominated, this is almost like a single dipper day here. So it's stolen valor, the question of Tim Walz. He's currently the governor of Minnesota. He was a congressman before that. He's now the vice presidential candidate for the Democrat Party. And the question is, out of all the things we could look at, we chose one topic today. Me as a veteran myself, I take issue with the mischaracterization by himself of his own service. Well, on the phone right now is somebody who I have a thread of a connection with. Paul Crespo and I both serve in connection with an organization called STARS, which basically is a group of senior retired military who care about the culture of the military and wokeness in the military. Paul Crespo himself is a former Marine, a Marine officer. He was an artilleryman. He was also Anglico, and if you've been around long enough, you know that's the guys who called in the naval guns. He's also served as an intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency, degrees from Georgetown, University of London, Cambridge. He's been around politics and commentary and even radio for a while. He's on the phone right now. Paul Crespo, how you doing?
Hey, Phil. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for making some time today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Listen, you wrote a piece that I read, and it fit perfectly within today's show content. You called him a coward with a bogus military record, Tim Walz. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, like most people, I didn't know much about him when he first popped on the scene. I really didn't think she would pick him because it was stupid to pick him in terms of politics. So, picking another left-wing radical like herself probably didn't help her, expand her base. But as soon as I started looking into him, I realized we had another John Kerry on our hands. They were hyping him up right away as a veteran and someone who served for years in the military and et cetera, et cetera. And it turns out that maybe not so much. That he lied about his record. He cut out early to avoid serving with his unit in Iraq, and then lied about why he did it or how he did it, et cetera. He also recently. We saw a clip recently where he said that he carried a weapon of war in war. Well, that's fine, except he never went to war. I mean, in combat. So, he has a tendency to embellish his record and play up his record unfairly and unjustifiably. So, everyone's got their experience. Some go to combat, some don't. Some serve in combat units, some don't. Somebody serves in the National Guard, some serve on active duty. But don't lie about your record and don't make it appear to be more than it is.
No, I completely agree. Let me ask you this. I mean, you've been around politics for a bit. You mentioned John Kerry. I talked a little bit earlier in my show here today about the Swift boating, and I even played the original ad, the soundtrack from the original ad that the Swift Boats for Veterans for Truth ran against Kerry that actually dropped him in the polls. Do you see this? No. Is this gonna be a Swift boat moment, or is it going to be a fleeting moment in the early stages of his campaign?
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. He's not the presidential candidate. He's the vice presidential candidate. And some of the stuff that Kerry did might be seen as worse because he also became an activist, anti-war activist, and threw his medals over the fence at the Capitol and disparaged the fellow soldiers and accused them of crimes. So I think what he did was on a level that's worse than Walz. But I still think that this deserves to be more than just a fleeting moment. I mean, this represents his character, this represents, the kind of man that he is, and if they're going to play up his military record, then we need to continue to emphasize that it's not what it seems, and that he's sort of dishonorable in the way that he behaved, especially at the end of his career. Pulling out just months before you're supposed to deploy with your unit. And there's debate, whether he knew officially or didn't know officially. The bottom line is that almost everyone in the unit and around it understood that they were on the list to be deployed overseas to Iraq. And, he knew that was coming, and he even mentioned it in a campaign statement when he was running for office that he was going to stay in the race despite his unit potentially going to Iraq. And then he put in his paperwork kind of fast and furious, and then, quietly, as one man said, slithered away and let his unit go to Iraq without him. So, that's, and he was at the time a master sergeant / command sergeant major, or command sergeant. And that was only because he had started to take the courses and the schoolwork to become that rank, and he didn't fill it, and didn't fulfill it, didn't complete it. So very quickly after they found out that he hadn't really performed his duties that were required to achieve that rank, they demoted him and lowered him back down to a master sergeant.
So let me ask you this.
So he also claims that he retired as a command sergeant, and he didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you this: you and I have both had deployment time. I noticed in your resume that you were in one of the Marine Expeditionary Units in the Pacific aboard an amphibious assault ship. So you probably had time where you went out on cruises and you were gone for long months. And I guarantee you that you saw some people within the ranks who would look for a reason to not have to report in at least for a while, or delay their arrival at ship duty and try to avoid the time away from home if possible. How'd you feel about those folks when it happened?
Well, obviously, when you're doing your duty and you're putting it all out there, and you're ready to sacrifice or give your life if necessary, and somebody else finds a sleazy way to get away from doing that, it's very upsetting and angering. So anyone who does that leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And I think a lot of the people that have commented on him negatively were fellow senior staff NCOs who also knew him well and said that at the time they thought it was kind of disgusting, and that he would leave his unit because he was a senior staff NCO, so he was responsible for the enlisted people in that battalion, and he chose to sort of leave them hanging and going on without him, right at the last moment. And remember, he was in the Guard for 24 years, but he never ever went overseas to a combat deployment. We were in the middle of Afghanistan and Iraq. I was volunteering for ways to go to combat when I was in and wasn't in the right region or the right place at the right time. This guy, finally had the chance to go, and he decided not to because his political career is more important.
And I watched an interview with the guy who wound up taking his place, the first sergeant, Barons, I believe his name is, who wound up being promoted into the empty spot that he had left behind. And they went down range, and apparently they lost several men. And you have to look at it and go, not only were these people he served with, but they were people who did not come home. Right. And it seemed like he did a disservice to those he served with by not only not being with them when the time came, but also by embellishing his record to make it look as if the things that he had done were just basically he's insulting everybody by doing that, in my opinion.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. It's two-sided. He didn't go, when he was called upon to finally go into a potential combat zone. He chose not to go and found a sleazy way to get out of it because he didn't even show up to sign his retirement papers. I think they noted that it said not available for signature, so they just kind of pro forma signed it off for him. But he kind of slithered away and didn't go. And then he goes off and starts saying how he's carried a weapon in war and how he's retired at this rank and served honorably. And it's like, you can serve honorably and then leave dishonorably. And that's what I like to point out. I go, whether he did his job, at minimum required for those years that he was in, God bless him, I'll give him credit for that. But then he kind of screwed it all up at the end when he, left dishonorably and then kind of embellished, the entire back story for why he left that and also what he did when he was in.
Well, let me ask you this before we finish our time together. So what's next? How do we keep this story front and center? What's the means by which this is not allowed to just fade away? How does the conservative side of politics, the pundits, otherwise, keep this thing in the right spot?
Well, every time someone tries to defend it, you've got to rebut it, and they will try to. And one thing they just did now, the campaign I just saw, changed the bio slightly to say that he reached the rank, instead of retired as the rank. So they're still fiddling it with it. It's like, you know what? He retired as a master sergeant. Just say that. Even now, after they fiddle with the bio, it's still not 100% accurate. So the more they keep doing this, the more it gives us an opportunity to say, you guys still don't get it right. Even when you try and fix it, you're still being deceptive. stop doing that. And then the more you get into it, the more they defend themselves, the more you have to continue to push it. But I would definitely push it. I also wrote a piece just recently about his connections to China, Walter's connections to China. And when you add the fact that he spent years going back and forth to China, working with a company that did business with the Chinese government, sending people over and funded by the Chinese government. And he lived and worked there. He's always been praising the Chinese, and he's always defended the Chinese and says we shouldn't be adversaries. You start wondering, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And if Trump was, went to Russia, lived there for a year, and went back and forth, 30 times, and was receiving funds from the Russian government, what would he be? I mean, he didn't do any of that, and he was already called a Russian asset. So what is Waltz if he's not a Chinese asset?
He's Manchurian candidate. No, actually, somebody defending him said, "Oh, he's not a Manchurian candidate." And I was going to write something saying, "No, yes, he is," or definitely, potentially could be, because I can't trust someone who has spent that much time, sleeping with the enemy, so to speak. Not only that, I don't know if you heard this, but the weirdest thing I heard was he got married on, was it June the 4th? Because that was the Tiananmen Square anniversary. That way he could always remember his anniversary, which I thought was the weird. And then he had his honeymoon in China. That's just bizarre.
The honeymoon I knew. I would have to double check the date, because he was in Tiananmen around the time of the repression and the massacre, but then just within a year later, when everyone was condemning it and realizing what a horrible scene that was and how awful it was, he goes back to China and decides that it's time to start going on a honeymoon in China, and then soon thereafter starting a business. So, if I was somewhere and they had a massacre where they killed potentially thousands of people who were simply, asking for democracy, I wouldn't go back to that place. And not only did he go back, but he went back, he had his honeymoon there, and his wife and he started a business that spent the next 10 years practically going back and forth to China, being funded in part by the Chinese government. So I think, you got two things. One is his stolen valor, and the other one is that he's a bit of a China stooge. So, both of those things together make him a very dangerous potential VP.
Totally agree. Paul Crespo, got to leave it there, man. Thanks for making time for us today. Really hope to connect with you in the future, and thanks for what you do and Simplify.
Anytime. Simplify, brother.
All right, we're taking a break right now. That's good stuff. And we will take some text messages, get caught up on that, and see where you guys are at, because, listen, this is y'all's show. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Hey, I'm going to start jumping through some text messages. Big Rig, have you seen the text line? It is like massive. This is a one dipper day, bro, but it's a big old dipper. It's a big old dipper. Let me just grab some of these, and you guys have great input. Paul from Decatur says, Paul, again, listened to your recent podcast on Tampon Tim, said if he and his wife were married in China, the question is, are they legally married here in the States? Or do they No, I don't think they got married in China. I'm just, but yes, they would be recognized. But still, I don't know the answer to that. He said, do they get married outside the USA to avoid losing the social? I can't, Paul, you're going down roads I can't even figure out. Then he also says about Harley Davidson, he said, I'm on my last Harley. I've owned many over the years, not because of age, but because the company is the big crap show, from sales to warranty to repairs and finance. You never talk to an American. You always get a foreigner for customer service. Wow. Chef Ben from Aniana says, whatever became of the food stamp receipt with the $16,000 balance on it where an immigrant purchased a grocery? I don't know, brother. You're going down a road I'm not sure about. But I heard something about that on social media, but I did not bird dog it, so I'm not positive. Got a brand new texter in the line who says, tell us where you are and where you're from, by the way. He says, Navy veteran here. I did 3 West Pacific trips, all a piece of cake compared to jumping out of airplanes, but I fired many rounds of 5-inch in support of guys who jumped out of airplanes. Yes, Waltz is stolen valor, if that's not the point, but that's not the point. The point is, if he'll lie about that, how can we believe anything he says? And we just got his name. It's Jay from Killen. Jay from Killen, thank you for your service. Thank you for supporting. But listen, man, you were in the thick. If you were pumping out 5-inch rounds, woo, that's big doings. Glenn from Bluntsville, the people who vote for Waltz don't care if he's an honorable man or not. That would be true. There will also be those who are ignorant because they don't pay attention. Dan from Huntsville says, the problem with calling the Waltz Stolen Valor issue a swift boat moment is that it needs an ad from members of his unit. The media's gaslighting is in full force trying to turn the issue around, not for reading. Just, okay, yada, yada, yada. Okay, thanks. Listen, I got that, Dan. Thank you. And listen, the bottom line is I bet you're going to see it. I bet you're going to see it. They've already had interviews live on the news. I watched 2 of them on Fox last night, members of his unit. I guarantee you there is somebody out there already approaching them saying, would you be willing to do an ad? And so just stand by, brother, because I think it's coming. John from Huntsville says, Phil, I hate to say this, but I think you guys are making too big a deal out of the stolen valor. Okay. Because for about 4 years now, Joe Biden's been walking around claiming he's the commander-in-chief. I wonder where he's going here, even though everybody knows he and his Democrat buddies stole that election. Absolutely nothing was done about it. So I'm pretty sure nothing's going to be done about this as well. You know what? They're already changing the website, though, John. That's the thing. It's funny. They realize they've been snagged. And I would love to know, did they not know this when they went in, or did they know it and not care and think it would blow over? Either way, they've already amended the website, apparently, to reflect that, well, he his rank was this, but he was, for a period of time or something like that. Anyway, Bruce from Springville says, from a fellow carrier soldier, I want to say thank you to Butters for his service. Butters, hope you're listening. Says, maybe I can call in sometime and swap a sea story. By the way, he said, I eat Krispy Kremes. Well, I may be switching over now. I tell you, I mean, the funny thing is literally, here's the deal. Dunkin' Donuts used to be in Columbus, Georgia. And when I was at Ranger School, I used to just be starving. And I would think about Dunkin' Donuts. And when I got a break between phases, I had 8 hours. One of the things on the list was I got to have donuts from Dunkin'. And so from then on, Dunkin' meant something. And now Dunkin's doing what? All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. More of your texts when we get back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, I'm talking about this one right here, Alabama. Y'all, I mean to say this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, before I go any further, as you guys get ready to go into go-home mode on this beautiful Turbo Thursday, let me just remind you guys, one of our newest sponsors is Inspire Advisors. Inspire Advisors. Look, these guys are so cool at what they do, and this is the kind of thing that an audience like this should be grabbing hold of. So I know all of y'all out there. I got the kind of audience that stands up for what you believe in, and a lot of you are out there doing what you can also to set aside for your retirement. You're investing in things. You got your portfolios. Sometimes your plans are managed. Sometimes you do it yourself. But listen, you may be surprised to find out that there's things in your plans that do not support the things you say you stand up for. You may be shocked to find out that some of your investments are going to companies that support abortion or pornography or even human trafficking. So that being said, you may want to meet Paul Breyer and his team from Inspire Advisors, and they will sit down with you in person for free, no catch, no fuss, no muss, no upsell, and just show you what's in your portfolio using what they call biblically responsible investing. BRI. It's a real thing. Biblically responsible investing. They are experts at it. And so they will show you what's in there and even give you some biblically aligned alternatives you might want to invest in. So the bottom line is this. If you want to know more about BRI, if you want to check out your own portfolio and get a free impact report, they can do that. Go to their website, www.moneypatternwealth.com. That's moneypatternwealth.com. Or you can go to our website, rightsidemedia.org. All our stuff's on there. One of the things we have is the Rightside Radio tab has sponsors. Click on their logo, takes you right to their website. Bottom line is this, you guys. Inspire Advisors. It's conservative, it's godly, it's balanced. They'll meet with you for free. It's like financial freedom with Inspire Advisors. Check them out. All right, let me get back. More text messages came in. I can't even keep up. You guys are an amazing audience. David from Huntsville says, if Walsh didn't carry any weapons to combat, does that mean he doesn't want to make any of them illegal? Oh no, he wants to make them illegal, dude. He wants to bar them. He just does. Navy Phil, by the way, Navy Phil, congratulations on all. But he says, Democrat Connecticut Senator Blumenthal, who was on the Marine Reserves, claimed to have served in Vietnam, which was also a lie. I am aware. I'd forgotten about that, but yes. I think he actually publicly recanted of that. Steve from Madison said, I made this comment a couple weeks ago, quote, are we sure we want Biden to drop out? The answer to that is a big fat no. The momentum has swung. Now it's a real race. Okay, listen, we didn't control that though, did we? It wasn't our place. The momentum has swung, not fully, but it is absolutely, and I agree with you on this, that this is a race. And just by the way, breaking news a little while ago, Trump came out and challenged Kamala Harris to 3 debates. She's agreed to one of them. I think the one she agreed to is the ABC debate, which was already pre-scheduled back when Biden had been in office. I think that'll be September 10th. Trump's asking for 2 more. No comment from the Harris campaign yet, but we do know there's going to be a debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And I'm telling you right now, pop the popcorn and do the tailgating because that one could be interesting. Listen, I'll be honest with you. If Trump will stay on task, if he'll be the focus Trump, I am really wanting him to win this race. But if you remember, there was a time he did the debate with Joe Biden, hiding Joe Biden back during the last campaign, 2020. And Trump came out and all he did was be insulting and combative and blustery, and it was awful. He was so off script, and I get it. Part of it was because he was mad. But he let his emotions get away from him. Surely to goodness, his advisors are telling him, you go up in the polls when you're focused, Trump. And attacking is not going to work. Stick with policy and just wear her out and ask her about her own words. And I think that's a winning strategy. Dave from Madison, is it true that Tampon Tim used to have a radio show called Wrong Side Radio? You know what? I would not be a bit surprised. Wrong Side Radio or Left Side Radio or who knows? What do you think, Big Rig? Maybe he did?
I don't know. I keep laughing every time you mention his name.
Tampon Tim?
Yeah.
That's them doing it, not me. But yeah, and by the way, that Tampon Tim joke is because apparently as governor, he signed legislation that puts feminine hygiene products in the boys' bathrooms because that's necessary, I guess.
Okay, well, justified nickname then.
Justifiable nickname.
Yeah.
Absolutely. TC from Priceville says, it would be a swift boat moment if we had any resemblance of an honest media. No news network will talk about it, even Fox News. TC, I can't understand how you say that, though. Last night, Fox had multiple interviews with unit members. I watched them. I mean, just a minute ago, up on the big screen, the 5 is on the screen, and that's all they were talking about. So I think Fox is on this. Fox's website's covered up with it. I think Fox is covering this pretty hard. The others are trying to talk their way out of it. But here's the thing. The swift boat moment was not the news. The swift boat moment was the advertising. And you have to give equal advertising by law. They can't suppress your ads. If you buy ad space, as long as you are within the parameters of what is allowed for an ad, it runs. And so I'm just saying, if all you guys out there want to run an ad, we'll sell you one right here on Rightside Radio. But yeah, the swift boat moment, it is not up to the news to do it. It's up to the ads and the campaigns to make it happen. Kimball from Harvest says, any member of the armed forces who served honorably should be proud of their service and deserves our respect. There you go. Even those who perhaps didn't deploy. Not everybody who served got the chance to deploy. It was Waltz's mischaracterization of his service regarding his rank and combat status that is offensive. He hoped to make political gains from this. He's betting on people not knowing the difference. It's offensive and indicative of his character. Kimball from Harvest, you nailed it. That's the whole show in one text. Could you give him some applause? I think that one may win the text day. Maybe that and Tampon Tim. Kenny from Huntsville chimes in and says, my dad served in Vietnam, and to get him to even speak about his experiences like pulling teeth, he would say we did what we had to do. Vague, brief, matter of fact. He never, ever mentioned it in a self-aggrandizing manner. Waltz is not being truthful or honorable. Kenny, thanks for your dad's service. And if he's still around, tell him welcome home. Surf from Huntsville says, Richard Blumenthal still hasn't answered for his stolen valor. Okay. I thought he had, but okay. I mean, not that I'm excusing what he did, but yeah. Danny from Decatur, I have no respect for John Kerry after I saw the video of him sitting in front of Congress and refer to all Vietnam veterans as baby killers. Yeah, that's what he did. I said that earlier in the show. There's a fine line between protesting the wartime decisions made by leadership in D.C. and actually protesting the boots on the ground and mischaracterizing their service. You know, I had a guy that I knew pretty well. He was also an Iraq veteran. And he and I were talking about it one day. And he still carries some burdens. And he was very clear. He's mad. He's mad. He sees nothing about that war that had honor in it. And I said, you can't say that. I said, because the men and women in the boots, I said, I'm not willing to go to that mischaracterization. I'm not. Because I served with men and women who were honorable, and I know that. I may not have enjoyed every decision made at the National Command Authority level, and I know the rules of engagement got weird, and I know that decisions were made that didn't help the troops in the field by people back in D.C. But the boots on the ground are different than the suits in D.C. And I think there's a fine line there. When you begin protesting, you better make sure you know who you're protesting and where the focus should be. My dad came home from Vietnam, 2 highly decorated tours, and he remembers being spit on at the airport. He didn't kill any babies. In fact, quite the opposite. And the idea that someone like John Kerry is going to claim his service as an opportunity to promote himself, at the same time upgrade his service in such a way that it's not even always truthful, and then, oh, by the way, at the same time denigrate other people who were in the service serving more honorably than him, it was galling. Can we get there with Tim Waltz? I don't know. We'll see. Gary from Decatur says it's simple. Anything the Democrats disagree with is a lie. Anything Democrats disagree with are facts. Truth is never part of their political conversations. Whew, Gary, I might put that on a bumper sticker. Mike from Arab says, Phil, these are the only 2 pics of Tim in uniform. Yeah, I've seen him. I've got more pics than this in my military career. Something fishy about there not being any pics of him in his Class A's. I want to see what medals were on his uniform. That's an interesting point, Mike. And I've not seen any in his dress uniform as a senior NCO yet. You're correct. And I would suspect they have to be out there. You don't serve 24 years and not have to go to an event once in a while at least wearing your Class A's, much less maybe at the time your blues. Steve from Madison, Trump has got to stop being so dramatic, claiming there'll be a world war, another Great Depression. If Harris is elected, people are really getting tired of that dramatic stuff. You think? Are they really getting tired of it? Or is it really the fact that maybe it's true? Have you looked at the Middle East right now? It's a mess. And we're talking about a near-nuclear Iran threatening to strike our ally. So don't underestimate where we are right now, Steve. James from Harvest, last couple before the break, he says, I wonder if his National Guard, Tim Walz's National Guard was so awesome, why wouldn't he let them do something when the BLM riots were destroying? James, you bring up a great point. So here's a guy who had 24 years of Guard service. Look, I spent a lot of time in the Guard. I got mobilized for a riot duty. And in fact, I got mobilized for, I got stood up for hurricane duty but didn't have to deploy. And I got called up for riot duty in Atlanta and then had a death in the family and I had to leave. But they wound up not doing anything. But you would think that a guy who's had 24 years of service in the Guard is going to understand the need for the Guard when it comes to civil disturbance. That's part of the role, the Homeland Defense, the ability of a governor to call up his Title 32 soldiers. Did he when he was governor? No. He let the state burn. I mean, his wife even said, we played that video yesterday. His wife even said she kept the windows in the governor's mansion open because she could smell the burning tires, and it was her touchstone moment with the whole event. Shut up. Yeah, he knew better. He knew how to do it. He's the commander-in-chief of his Guard. He had the entire 34th Infantry Division. The Red Bulls. He could have deployed them. Russell from Rural Route 1, I said it. Do you see that? It flowed right out.
You've been nailing it lately.
I don't know how to explain it. It's like
a lot of practice.
Maybe I'm just, heard on Fox News Radio, the National Guard of Minnesota saying that Tampon Tim put in his paperwork before his unit received official notice. No, I don't think so. I think somebody called back there and said, say it, but I don't think they can really say it. All right, listen, I got more text message dropping in as we go. Badger from Athens says, do you think there's any truth to the rumor that Harris picked Walz because the rest would have outshined her? I think that's very likely. I think there's also the fact that none of them also wanted it. I think there were people turning down the job. I think one day we'll find out for sure that Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or Kathy Hochul or Josh Shapiro were actually, or Bashir from Dan Bashir from Kentucky, were asked to do it. And they declined because they didn't know I'm going to get hitched, yoked up with this one. Marcus from Huntsville said, instead of his tax returns, we need to demand see Tim's DD-214. You can black out socials, but everything else should be public record. You are correct, sir. All right, listen, we're taking a break right now, and we'll take that last break of the day and come right back and get you guys all the way to go home time on a Thursday. Looking forward to a Friday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, listen, we're taking you all the way to the go-home time right now. It is 4:53 p.m., and we are looking at something that Butters just sent me. So his sister, believe it or not, actually works with Megyn Kelly. So that's very cool. And they had done some research on Tim Walz's military record. His DD-214 lists, apparently, I'm going just strictly off the text, so I've not seen the DD-214. His DD-214, after 24 years of service, lists 1 Army Commendation Medal, 2 Army Achievement Medals. After that, everything is not. So here's how you just there's 2 types of there's really 3 types of medals. There are medals for service. In other words, I was there. There are medals for and good conduct and stuff like that. And there are medals for what we might call impact. You did something right, and on your merit, you received an award for it. And then there are medals for valor in combat, and you can only get those in a war zone. It is also possible to get a Bronze Star in the war zone that does not have a V device because you operated at a seriously high level, but it was in the war zone. So anyway, after 24 years of service, he has 1 Army Commendation Medal and 2 Army Achievement Medals. Everything else on his list is like basically the I were there ribbons, which I don't fault him because I've got a number of those myself. Global War on Terrorism Medal, which is going to wind up being either expeditionary or for service. I don't know which one it is, but it's basically the I served during the Global War on Terror and I may have gotten deployed. The Armed Forces Reserve Medal, which is a time and grade type medal, an NCO Professional Development Ribbon, and the Reserve Component's Overseas Training Ribbon, meaning I went somewhere while I was in the Reserve Component. And so, listen, I don't know what he did to earn the ARCOMs and the 2 AAMs, or the ARCOM and 2 AAMs, but that is a fairly, I just be honest with you, if you're a command sergeant major, I would have expected a little something more. Just saying. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Thank you, Butters, for squaring us away, and pass it on that if Megyn Kelly needs any military commentary, I am proud to help out. All right, John from Huntsville got the grades in. He says Butters wins the imaginary bronze medal. There you go, with a solid A. Phil wins the imaginary silver medal. Well, okay, with an A+. Which means today's imaginary gold medal winner is, of course, Lee from Huntsville with an A++. Wow. Got the explosion and the applause. Says congratulations. Also want to say Big Rig did not maybe make the podium today because he doesn't watch any sports.
I was just trying to make up a little bit of points right there.
You did, but it's too late. The grades are already in.
Yeah.
No carryover to tomorrow.
That's good. Lee doesn't really win that often, so good for her.
And she used to always feel like she was being slighted. So, Lee, if you're listening right now, she'll probably text in any second and say, what?
I think that's funny. John told me to join his football team, even though I don't watch sports.
You know what that means is he wants you to help his stats.
Yeah. He'll tell me what teams to pick.
Either that or he'll wait and he'll do just the opposite of whatever you do. Jeff from Indiana's texted in and says, Phil, this guy had so much... Hang on a second. Brother, your voice texting, dude. You got to proofread. He says this guy had so much much disdain. I'm pretty sure he's trying to say disdain. He says to stain, like he dropped coffee on his shirt. Anyway, he says so much disdain for his own guard that he didn't call him into the BLM riots because he said something to the effect of a bunch of fry cooks with guns. Is that what did he really say that? I got to find that out. If he said that, then I'm done. I'm gonna go on the warpath. You better not have said that. Tell you what, Jeff from Indiana, I am tasking you right now, my brother. When you're through driving, if you've got a link to an article that says that he talked about his own National Guard guys as being nothing but a bunch of fry cooks with guns, I want to know about it because that's beyond lying about your record. Now you are literally maligning the character of those with whom you served and while he was commander-in-chief as the governor. And then Glenn from Bluntful says, I think someone is biased towards Lee. You know, I think the pendulum has swung. There used to be this bias against Lee, and now it's like she can do no wrong. I smell a rat. She called John offset and listen, okay, Lee, we figured you out.
Maybe.
All right, you guys, have an amazing night. We'll see you tomorrow. We already got a good slate lined up. We'll see you then.